All right, in this video we're going to talk about and look at meta tags, which are tags or snippets that describe a page's content. And they don't appear in the body of the web page anywhere. Nobody sees them. It just describes some stuff about the page. So we're going to look at some of the popular ones, including the ones that are used in search engines. So let's create a new file. We'll call it 03 underscore meta underscore tags.html. And I'm going to generate my content with Emmet, so I'm going to use exclamation tab or enter. And notice that it adds 3 meta tags. It also adds a lang attribute, which you don't need in your HTML tag, but it just describes the language as English. And these are all attributes. So tags have attributes. We're going to be using them along the way, and they describe basically their properties of the tag. So all of these are meta, right? So the only difference is the different attributes. That's how we can tell what each one is. So the first one here is char set, which is the character set, and this specifies the character encoding of the page. So UTF-8 is actually the default. It's the character encoding for Unicode. It's not extremely important to understand how this works or what it is. We could actually remove this and it would still be UTF-8. And the Unicode standard covers almost all characters, punctuation, symbols, things like that. So that's what that is. It's the character set that this page uses. The next one here is pretty important for responsive design. This is the viewport tag. And responsive design, it's all about making your website or your user interface responsive to different screen sizes. Okay, so you want your website to look good on a desktop, a laptop, a smartphone, a tablet, and there's different strategies, mostly to do with CSS, on making your site look good on these devices. But one of the things you want to do is add this viewport tag, and you want to set the content value. You want to set a couple things in the content, which is one, the width. You want to set it to whatever the width of the device, and the scale should be set to 1.0. So if you've ever gone on a non-responsive site on a smartphone and you had to drag your finger over to kind of see the rest of the site, that probably doesn't have the viewport set. Okay, so you want it to actually show the entire website or the entire interface. So that's what the viewport tag does. It's actually really important. So this next one has to do with browser compatibility, this HTTP equiv. You can see the content equals IE equals Edge. So IE is referring to the old Internet Explorer browser, which is not used very much at all anymore. Windows now ships with Edge, so we're basically saying we want to use the Edge standards. And Microsoft browsers have been just a nightmare since the beginning of web development. Back when I started, it was Internet Explorer 6, which never rendered things correctly. You always had to do little hacks here and there in your CSS and in your JavaScript to get things to work. So even now, IE 11, which is the latest version, is still very clunky, but not too many people use it. I think if I look at my analytics on my website, it's like 0.3% or something ridiculous like that. So it's extremely important to support those browsers anymore, unless you're building a website that may have like a lot of elderly people as viewers, because a lot of them have older computers that they haven't updated that still run IE. All right, so now what I want to look at is meta tags that have to do with search engines. So we're going to talk a little bit about search engines, and the title is actually really important. I'm just going to put meta tags here, but in your title, you want to put something that really describes the page. You also want to put keywords that you want to rank for well in the search engines. Now, SEO, which is search engine optimization, has changed dramatically from years ago. Like there's certain things that used to be really important are not anymore. And I'm not an SEO expert, so I'm not going to speak too much on that. But the title is what shows in the search engine. So if we jump into Chrome here, and let's open up a new tab. And by the way, this time that you see here in the background, this is a Google Chrome extension called Moment. If you're interested, I know a lot of people ask me about it, so I figured I'd just tell you guys. It has to-dos and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. But let's go ahead and go to google.com, and let's search for like, let's say Miami web design. And when we look at these websites that show up, this large text here, this is the title. Okay, whatever you have in the title for the page is going to show up here most of the time. If it doesn't match the page's content, Google might take it upon itself to put something in here, but usually it's going to be your title. And then this text here, the smaller text, is actually the description meta tag, which I'll show you in a second. But if we go to this site, and which I'm not affiliated at all with, and if we go ahead and view the source code with Command Option U or Control U on a Windows machine, and we look at the title, you'll see it's Miami Website Design Company, Digital Agency, and then the name of the company. So that's a good choice for a title. It has some keywords in there. It also has the company name, and you can see if I hover over the title, that's exactly, it should pop up here. Well, it usually does. I'm not sure why it's not popping up, but usually it'll pop up and show you the whole title. There we go. And you can see that it matches what is in the HTML. And then if we look at the meta description tag, which is, let's see, where is it? Here's the viewport. Let's search for it. So if we do a Control F and search for description, here it is. So meta name equals description, and then the content, you'll see this is exactly what is showing up in the search engine. So Fuse is a full service Miami website design company. If we go back to the results here, Fuse is a full service Miami website design company. So this is going to be your description. This is your title. So let's go ahead and add in a description. So we're going to say meta, and we want to use the name description and content. You'd say whatever. I'm just going to put this is my website description. But you would want to put something that specifies what's on the page. You also want to put some keywords in here. I don't think the description holds too much weight, but it is what the user sees when they search for your site, so that's pretty important. And another search engine related tag is the keywords meta tag. Now, this keywords tag used to hold a lot of weight like years and years ago, but now it's not. It doesn't really matter. It's just for describing the page's content. So it's not like it's going to make or break your site in the search engine. But generally, you want to keep between like 8 and 12 words. So let's say this was a web development company. We'd put like web development, maybe web design, maybe your company name or something like that. So you generally want to have around 8 or so of these keywords. All right, so let's see. The last one that I want to show you is if you don't want your site to rank in search engines, if you don't want it to show up at all, you would use the robots meta tag. So let's say meta name equals robots, and for the content, you would want to put no index so that it doesn't index your site in the search engine, and then no follow so it doesn't follow any links on the page and index those. All right, so if for some reason you don't want your site to show up in Google and Bing and all the other engines, you would just put this in here. And I'll just put a comment. Do not index our page. All right. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm not going to go over any of the other ones right now because they're really not that important. If you want to look up some of the other ones on your own, you can do that, but I don't want to throw too much stuff at you that you don't really need right now. So that's it, guys. In the next video, we're going to start to look at typography, look at creating headings and paragraphs and bolded text and stuff like that. All right, guys, so now we're going to look at some tags that have to do with typography. Some of the stuff we already looked at, like the H1 tag, which is a heading tag. We'll look at some of the other headings and also paragraph and the strong tag and stuff like that. So let's create a new file here called 04_typography.html. And I'm going to show you some other stuff as well, some little tips and tricks when it comes to VS Code. So let's put in our boilerplate, which is, we'll do exclamation tab, and that puts in all of our structure here. And for the title, let's change this. We'll just say like headings, paragraphs, typography. Oops. Okay, and then we're going to go down to the body here, and I'm going to put a comment. Now, if you want to just put a comment, like an empty comment, you can just do Control and then the question mark or the / key, and that will put in an empty comment. It might be Command and that key on a Mac. I'm not sure, because on my Mac I actually switch the Control and the Command keys. So when I say Control, it might be Command on a Mac. I'm not sure. So let's go ahead and just put in headings here. And another tip, if you want to go to the next line, obviously you can go to the end here and you can hit enter, but if you're in the middle here and you hit enter, it'll do that. If you want to have a clear new line and you're in the middle, you can hold down Control, or again, might be Command, and then enter, and it'll create a new line. No matter where you are here, it'll create a new line if you hold down Control. Okay, so keep that in mind. And I'm going to give you these little tips throughout the course because I think that it really helps you write your code in a more efficient way and in a much faster way. All right, so let's put some headings in here. So H1, I'm just going to say heading 1, and I'll hold Control and Enter to go to the next line. Let's do H2 tab, heading 2, oops, H3, heading 4. What else? We got heading 5. It goes up to 6. So H6, heading 6. All right, so let's save this and let's open this up with Live Server. You might have to close some of your other tabs. And this is what it's going to look like. So this is H1. It's going to be the largest, and then it goes smaller and smaller, and then H6 is going to be the smallest. Now you can change the font size through CSS. You can do whatever you want through CSS, but by default, H1 is going to be the largest. Now, a little tip or some advice that I would give is you usually only want to have an H1 per page, because the search engines actually look at this, and you want to have, like, you want to describe whatever the content is. For instance, if it's a blog post, you want to have your blog post title in the H1, okay? And you can have, you can have multiple H1s, but it's good practice to just have one per page. And then these other ones, you can have as many as you want. Say you have a roll of blog posts, maybe you have an H3 for each title. Okay, so it's not, mandatory, but I would suggest using one H1 per page if possible. So those are headings. Let's go ahead and look at paragraphs. We've already done this, but it's just a P tag. Now, I'm going to give you another tip here. With Emmet, we can generate some dummy text. If you need just some text to kind of fill, as a placeholder, you can do lorem, L-O-R-E-M, and then hit tab, and it'll give you a paragraph of dummy text or filler text. And if you want to specify a certain number of words, like let's say we want a 10-word sentence or paragraph, we could do lorem 10 tab, and it'll give us 10 words. Okay, we could even do like lorem 500, and it'll give us 500 words. I'm going to do, let's say, 100, and just generate some text. And if I save this and we go and we take a look, you'll see that we have this paragraph of 100 words. Now, inside the paragraph, I'm going to add, we'll just go anywhere, it doesn't really matter, and I'm going to put in a strong tag. Okay. Now with VS Code, once I put the beginning tag in, it adds the ending one automatically. So I'm just going to cut that out and put that over here. And then anything that's within here is within this strong tag. So let's save this and go back, and notice that it's bolded. Okay, so by default it'll be bold, but with CSS you could change the styling of this strong tag to be a different color or to be bigger font, whatever you want to do with it. But it's made to make it stand out. And at the same time, you have the emphasis tag, which is the EM. So let's say EM, and I'm going to just put the ending tag, let's say, down here. And if we save that, we take a look, by default it's going to be italic. It's actually this right here. Okay, so you can see that the text is italic, which again you can change within CSS, and we're going to get into CSS in the next section. So that's strong and emphasis. We also have the line break, which I showed you in one of the slides. It's one of the self-closing tags. So let's say we want a space right here without adding a new paragraph. If I just do this and save, it's not going to reflect that in the browser. Okay, this is only in the editor. I can put a million spaces here and save, and it doesn't show in the browser. To actually have a line break without adding a new paragraph, you would add in a BR tag. So I'm going to go right here and put in a BR tag. So what that's going to do is it's going to knock this onto the next line in the browser, as you can see right here. If I wanted it to go down again, I could add in another BR tag. I'm just going to put a comment here. Okay, so if we have 2 line breaks, you'll see that it pushes it down again, and I can push it down as much as I want. And since it's a self-closing tag, you could either do this format or you could do that. So both of these are going to work, as you can see. I tend to use this, just the HTML5, but sometimes I use a Visual Studio Code extension called Prettier, which will auto-format your code, and it adds the slash automatically. So if you've watched some of my other videos and I have the slash, that's because I'm using Prettier. And I might introduce that extension to you guys later. Now, in addition to the BR tag, we have an HR tag, which is a horizontal rule. I'm actually going to put that, let's see, we'll go right here. And let's say horizontal rule. And what this does, the HR tag, is it does a line break, but it also creates an actual line. So if we check this out, you can see it put a line across the screen. Okay, so that's a horizontal rule. Now, if you've studied HTML before, especially if it was a while ago before HTML5, you might have seen tags like the bold tag. So if we put a B here, you might have seen stuff like this. So if we actually take a look at this in Chrome, you'll see that it actually is bold, but the bold tag, along with the I tag for italics and stuff like that, the U tag for underline, it's all been deprecated because HTML is not meant for styling. And the strong tag replaced the bold tag because the strong tag is a semantic tag. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bold. It just means that it should stand out in some way, but we leave it up to the CSS to say what that way is, even though it bolds by default. And that's kind of hard to understand. It did confuse me in the beginning when HTML5 came out, but just know that we don't really use this anymore, or the U, or I think there was S for strike through. Although we do have a semantic tag for deleted text, which does by default add a strike through. So let's say we do del, and we're going to wrap this text right here. So this is actually a semantic tag. So we'll save this and take a look, and notice that it does add a strike through. Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be strike through. We can change that in the CSS if we want. Maybe we want it to be highlighted with a yellow background or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean strike through like the S tag did. They took that out of HTML5 or deprecated it. Alright, so in the next video we're going to take a look at links, hyperlinks, and we're going to also look at embedding images into a web page.